Hello there all, my name is Kate and welcome to this channel. Today we're going to visit one of the oldest and most beautiful cities in Germany. I'm going to tell you about the 10 top sites worth visiting here. I used to live in Ulm for about 2 years, so could be considered an expert. Don't forget to subscribe, click that button, click the notification bell, and YouTube will remind you about my new content. After a short intro, we're going to start our journey. So Ulm, as we said, one of the oldest cities in Germany on picturesque banks of the Danube River, old imperial city rich in traditions, legends and definitely sights. Ulm is famous all over the world for two main reasons. First, it has the highest church in this particular style of Gothic church with the height of over 160 meters, and it is the birthplace of legendary physicist Albert Einstein. Number 1 on our list, Ulm Cathedral or Ulm Münster, the main attraction and pride of Ulm. The cathedral is crowned with 161.5 meter spire, which is the highest in the world. It took roughly 5 centuries to build this great of a cathedral, and on the very top of the cathedral there is an unusual monument to, surprisingly enough, a sparrow. Why a sparrow? It's one of the symbols of the city. Their images and sculptures you can see anywhere throughout the city. By the way, let me know how many you've seen in this video. There is a legend that Sparrow told or showed the engineers how to transport long wooden beams for the spire of the cathedral, because apparently they couldn't have figured it out themselves. The construction of the cathedral began in 1377 and finally was completed in 1890, therefore more than 500 years. What's interesting that for many centuries, two things remained unchanged. First, the construction was entirely financed by the townspeople, and the fact that it remained entirely in the Gothic style. In 5 centuries, 6 masters have changed, and each of them invested a particle of their soul in order to make this gorgeous of a cathedral. And here I would like to share a little bit about the history of the city. So the history of Ulm began in the end of the 1st century AD, although the first settlements here were much earlier, as early as Neolithic period. Over the long years of its existence, it managed to be a residence for German rulers, a free imperial city, a bone of contention between patricians and guilds, and even a completely bankrupt city. In 1181, Frederick Barbarossa granted Ulm the rights of a free imperial city. That started the prosperous chapter in the city's history. The construction of the city fortifications began then, and eventually the city became one of the main trade and craft centers in Germany. Unsurprisingly, perhaps, people of Ulm were quite prosperous. That what really allowed for the construction of such an impressive Gothic cathedral. All the way until the 17th century, Ulm grew and prospered. The decline of the economy came in the 17th century, after the discovery of America, which changed the vector of the development of trade and affected many countries and states, and beginning of the 30 Years' War. And number 2 on our list, Fischerviertel. That's the fishermen's quarters. Fishermen's quarters, pretty much. That was always one of my favorite areas in Ulm. That's the area that is rich in half-timbered houses standing on water. It's a very picturesque part of Ulm. There are a lot of channels here, a lot of bridges, many beautiful old buildings, lots of great restaurants, coffee shops, and hotels. Back in the day, it used to be the working area, working quarters. Ironically, today, only the wealthiest of locals live here. So that's quite a switch. So again, many centuries ago, it was a working area, a fairly smelly working area, because a lot of fishermen brought their catch here, dried their nets, repaired their fishing gear, sold the fish. So therefore, there was a lot of aromas in the area. Some of the oldest buildings you will find here. One of the oldest I will talk about in more detail was the one that was built in 1443. That's the Leaning Building, like a falling Tower of Pisa. Ulm has its own version of the Roth, and later we'll talk about it. That building is actually in this area. Here in the restaurants, you could find some of the really, really good fish. And they're very famous for different fish dishes with potatoes. And my personal favorite dessert was, I don't remember the name, but ask for fried fresh prunes with nuts and ice cream. Doesn't sound maybe particularly appealing, but it tastes amazing, trust me. And number 3 on our list, Ulm Town Hall or Ulm RathHaus. It's the pride of the city. It's one of the most beautiful city halls in Germany. Even though Germany is famous for beautiful city halls, that's just the fact. But this one is particularly pretty with gorgeous paintings, lavishly decorated facade in the early Renaissance style. The building was built in the 14th century and originally was used for trading purposes. Much later it became a city hall. The highlight of the building is definitely the astrological clock that were built here in 1520. Unfortunately, during the Second World War, the city hall was mostly destroyed, only the southern wing remained, and the rest was basically rebuilt later. And number 4 on our list, the absolute must, Schiefes Haus, or the Leaning House, or the Falling House in Ulm. If you haven't seen this one, you haven't been to Ulm. It's like going to Pisa and not seeing the Leaning Tower of Pisa, my personal opinion. It's also called Crooked House, located in the historical part of Ulm in the Fisherman Quarters. Beautiful medieval quarters. Today, a hotel is located here. I have never stayed, but would love to. Would highly recommend staying here. As we know, the house was built in 1443, luckily survived the bombing of Second World War. Since the construction, the 5-story building has leaned by 10 degrees and it stayed at this leaning position to this day. The reason behind it was the deformation of its foundation. Number 5 on our list, Ulm Town walls or Ulm's fortifications that are absolutely stunning. Many of them date back to the 15th century. Most are perfectly preserved. The city wall you can see right now, it can be seen from both from the Old Town and also from the city park that are on the banks of the river. If you walk on the wall, which is free, a great way to discover the city. Some of the parts of the wall look like the park that you see. From some of them you can have a nice view over the Old Town. Number 6, I would like to draw your attention to the modern architecture. Even though it is one of the oldest cities in Germany, it doesn't stop it from being very elegant with a lot of beautiful modern buildings. And I think they work really, really well with the traditional older architecture. The building that you see right now, that's Ulm Museum. I would also recommend checking out Ulm Library that looks like a lovely glass pyramid, and many more. And number 7 on our list is simply Old Town, but do not underestimate walking in most of the streets in the Old Town. It is fairly large, and I think every single street deserves your attention. There are many nice boutique stores, there are great coffee shops, great restaurants. Very few cities in the world preserve the medieval look. Ulm is certainly one of them. In particular, if you're staying in Ulm overnight, I think the experience would be much richer, because most of the tourists come to Ulm during the day and then they leave. Therefore, mornings and evenings are fairly quiet. In my own personal experience, Ulm in the evening and in the morning is in fact quite quiet, and it has that feel of a true medieval city. But overall, I love Ulm's Old Town. It's absolutely stunning, narrow, cobbled streets, squares, fountains, medieval houses. All of that together creates an unforgettable experience. Number 8, a fairly timely site, riverbank parks. Riverbanks are absolutely beautiful in Ulm. On both sides, there are lovely parks. These are places for all sorts of activities, competitions. People swim in the river. There are a lot of boat competitions. It's a great place to rest. Now you must be getting tired after visiting all of the sites that I've recommended so far. So I would recommend having a picnic or buying a few cups of coffee, a couple drinks, and then having it by the river. Especially if you go to the other side of the river, you would have a great view over the city. Number 9, another great site for rest. This is a wonderful park called Rose Park. If you're still tired, maybe a cup of coffee would freshen you up. That's exactly what I've decided to do before heading to the Rose Garden. It is located, as you could see, right by the city wall. It's a very long park by the other side of the river, with hundreds and hundreds of roses and a lot of benches and great places to rest. I used to read books here. I love this place. So definitely check it out. Rose Garden Ulm, certainly a worthy site. And number 10 on our list, Fischkasten fountain. That must look familiar. It's right in front of the city hall. It is the oldest fountain in Ulm. The name is interesting enough, Fischkasten, which basically means fish box. In this particular case, the name is very explanatory. Back in the day, it used to be a market, and the fountain was used as water box for fish to keep the fish fresh. The fountain was built in 1482, and on the market days, it was used as a fish box. And that would be all that I wanted to share with you today about Ulm. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to put the like. Thank you so much for joining, and see you soon.